Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all good things in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Rafe, and I am your host for this evening for a very special episode, which shall be revealed shortly. And the reason we're revealing that shortly is because, well, we have the world's greatest listeners, and that is evidenced by the fact that they have made us a global top 10% podcast. As usual, you can reach us at bufnagle@bufnagle.com. Remember to share the love. Give us a 5-star review, hit subscribe, hit like. There's smiley stars or happy bananas or whatever the things are there. Give us those things. Tell a friend to listen and you will get a free episode. Remember, you can buy me a coffee or buy me whatever you want on that little link there in the show notes. Yeah, do that for me. Anyway, well, I am solo today, and today's very special episode is in preparation. This episode should drop on the 7th of January, which means that on the following day, January 8th, 2025, I will turn 60. So I will celebrate. The end of my 6th decade, the start of my 7th decade, at age 60 there on tomorrow, if you're listening to this on the 7th of January. So that it reminds me of a story that I told, and I've been looking forward to this birthday for 50 some years. And the reason is that there was a long time ago, about 15 years ago, I was a very young boy, and there was an assignment, I think, in school, or I had to have been in school. I'm not sure where else it would have been. But we were all asked, the assignment, what do they call it? The prompt was to tell what you think the best age was. And we had to write a little paper, or we had to write draw a picture. I don't know what it was. There was, what age, what is the best age to be? And people were like, well, I think age 8 is the best age because that's when you get to ride the roller coaster without your mom or something like that. And other people would say, I think 18 is great because that's when you get to drink. Or some people were saying, well, I get to vote when I turn 18, so that's a good thing. Or 16 when you get your driver's license. And I remember thinking long and hard about this because I took, it may not seem that way, although because I spent a lot of time screwing around in school, but I did take the school part of school very seriously. And I went to answer that question, and I thought, what do I really want? And it seemed to me at the time that older people seemed to have it together. I never saw old people. I mean, grown-ups, right? Okay, I'm 10 at the time or something. I never saw old people argue and bicker about the things that little kids bicker about. They seem to know things. Like, I wouldn't understand how the thermostat works, and an old person would explain it to me. I didn't understand how the water heater worked, and they would explain that. I didn't understand how stoplights worked, or air conditioning, or how a plane flies, or any of the things that we explain here on the podcast are things I didn't know, and I required somebody older than me to explain them to me. So I started thinking about what age would it be that I would know a lot of stuff. And I said, or wrote, whatever it was, I think we had a presentation for this. We had to get up and say it, or teachers read it or something like that. But I said that I thought the best age would be 60, because I think when you get to 60, you would know all these things and you wouldn't rely on other people to have to tell you how all these things worked. So I wrote, I thought 60 would be a good age because I thought by that time you would have wisdom, and wisdom seemed like the kind of thing I wanted way back, I don't know, circa 1975. So that's what I said. a long time ago. And ever since that, then my parents have been very, very proud of me because I showed such wisdom as a as a youth to know that I wanted wisdom, and people were very excited at that little meeting or presentation or reading or whatever it was where we revealed what we thought the best age was, because I had said 60 and they were like, "Ooh, this is very great." So as I've aged, though, hey, I'm sure you saw this coming. Those of you who are with me on this journey and you're about the same lap that I am, you will realize that age doesn't produce quite the clarity that we thought it would when we were little. And it provides clarity on certain things, but it also provides uncertainty or disclarity, whatever that is, on other things. It seems to me that there are things that I didn't understand that now I understand, but there were things I thought I understand that are murkier. So it's kind of I'm not sure it's better. I'm not sure it's worse. I think it's probably a different phase. I'm sure there's I'm sure there are lots of books written about this sort of thing, and maybe even some podcasts that address these topics. But this lack of clarity, this lack of understanding, this uncertainty about where we are is the topic for today. This I guess I'll call it this discontent, this uncertainty it's constant in me. And I joke with my wife that the only time I'm ever content is when I'm discontented. And it seems to me that I have restlessness. And I was thinking about that the other day, and I thought of the line from Augustine's Confessions, where he says essentially something like, he says, he's speaking to God. He says, you made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you. And I'm sure some of you guys out there listening saw that coming when I started talking about being discontented and being restless. I had this restlessness in my heart is what constantly gives me pause and keeps me honest, I hope. So it turns out that line, or that the component that what should I call it? That component of Augustine's Confessions shows up in the Roman Office of the Readings on the 9th Sunday in Ordinary Time, along with a passage from Job, from the 28th chapter of Job. And so I looked up what this passage was, because the thing I was reading had a link to that, and it was very easy to get to it. And then I pulled out it's interesting. I pulled out my Bible here, and I have a couple of these. There's a word for those ribbons that are in your books that mark pages. And one of the pages marked was this one, which was Job 28. So things are starting to feel very serendipitous to me at this point. And I feel like there's somebody's trying to teach me something. So we haven't done an episode on the book of Job because it's so big, at least for me, that I'm not even sure how to address it in one episode. And I'm not sure I'm capable of doing that. But the general premise is this: Job's a guy, and Satan and God are talking, and Satan says, people only love you because their lives are going good. And God says, well, have you met Job? Job's a pretty good guy, and Job is a good guy, and he won't leave me even if things go bad. And Satan says, well, can I try? And God says, yeah, go ahead. So I feel bad for little Job, because he feels like he's a real pawn in this game here. And so God says it's okay, and Satan unleashes a whirlwind against Job. Job is a landowner, and he's got a big family, and he's got a nice house, and everything's going great. And in like a heartbeat, everything gets taken away from Job. He loses his land, he loses his animals. I forget which I don't know if the Hittites or the Corinthians or the Justinians or the midichlorians. Somebody comes in and takes his animals and burns his crops and kills his family, and they're like, he's got nothing. And in a heartbeat, in one day, he loses like everything, absolutely everything, and he gets to rock bottom. And he really and the rest of the book of Job is discussions between Job and his friends about how to interpret this. Job is trying to stay faithful and stay in line with his beliefs. And some of his friends are saying, dude, this bad thing's happened because you sinned. And he's like, well, I don't know. I mean, I know I'm a sinner, but it's like, this seems to me awfully big punishment for what's going on. And nobody really, and they start questioning, okay? They start questioning and struggling to understand. He kind of despairs and he asks God, how can this be? I mean, he's a little tentative doing this. And if you've listened to the Luke's gospel thing we talked about a couple of weeks ago, that there's the idea of asking God, why should this be, or how can this be? This can lead to problems. Just ask Zechariah. And so Job kind of asks this, and he gets one of the greatest rebukes in the history of literature. God lays into him saying, dude, if you had any idea, do you have any idea what's going on? You don't have any idea. So quit asking questions. Okay. God really rips him one. So I find that one of the great passages in scripture is God's rebuke of Job. But when Job is discussing how things are going for him and trying to understand this, he gets to this chapter 28, which is sometimes titled, "Where is wisdom to be found?" And quite frankly, it's not that long. It goes like this. There is indeed a mine for silver and a place for refining gold. Iron is taken from the earth and copper smelted out of stone. He sets a boundary for the darkness. The farthest confines he explores. He breaks open a shaft far from habitation, unknown to human feet, suspended far from people they sway. The earth, though out of it comes forth bread, is in fiery upheaval underneath. Its stones are the source of lapis lazuli, and there is gold in its dust. The path no bird of prey knows, nor has the hawk's eye seen it. The proud beasts have not trodden it, nor has the lion gone that way. He sets his hand to the flinty rock and overturns the mountains at their root. He splits channels in the rocks. His eyes behold all that is precious. He dams up the sources of the streams and brings hidden things to light. As for wisdom, where can she be found? Where is the place of understanding? Mortals do not know her path, nor is she to be found in the land of the living. The deep says, she is not in me, and the sea says, she is not with me. Solid gold cannot purchase her, nor can her price be paid with silver. She cannot be bought with the gold of Ophir, with precious onyx or lapis lazuli. Gold or crystal cannot equal her, nor can golden vessels be exchanged for her. Neither coral nor crystal should be thought of. The value of wisdom surpasses pearls. Ethiopian topaz does not equal her, nor can she be weighed out for pure gold. As for wisdom, where does she come from? Where is the place of understanding? She is hidden from the eyes of every living thing. Even from the birds of the air she is concealed. Abaddon and death say, only by rumor have we heard of her. But God understands the way to her. It is he who knows her place, for he beholds the ends of the earth and sees all that is under the heavens. When he weighed out the wind and measured out the waters, when he made a rule for the rain and a path for the thunderbolts, then he saw wisdom and appraised her, established her, and searched her out. And to mortals he said, see, the fear of the Lord is wisdom, and avoiding evil is understanding. And that's the poem of wisdom. And it starts off saying man has figured out where all this fancy stuff comes from, where gold comes from, and these great jewels and all the fancy stones that they come out of the mountains. Everything has a source in the earth, but it's hard to know where wisdom comes from. And for humans, for mortals, the lesson is that fear of the Lord is wisdom, and avoiding evil is understanding. So that was good for me to learn this the other day and to be reminded of these kinds of things. And the question then becomes, so what is fear of the Lord, and how do we avoid evil so as to obtain understanding? So I looked that up. I see these rabbit hole things. Here we are at the Buff doing the work for you, so you don't have to get your fingers dirty. Fear of the Lord is putting God above everything else. And we think a lot about fear of the Lord, meaning like he can squash us. But I think it's more of an idea of centering yourself around God. Put God there at the center and put everything else to the side, and things will, and that is a good thing. Fear of the Lord will give you the wisdom then. So it's more respect and awe rather than terror, I guess. Although terror might be appropriate depending on what you're doing or how you're behaving, or depending on who you are, maybe terror should be more appropriate. But when we talk about fear of the Lord, we don't talk about necessarily being scared. We talk about respect and awe. And the thing about avoiding evil is a little different. We say here at the Buff, one of the things we've said since the beginning was to seek the good, and it's important to recognize that there is evil in the world. There is evil out there. There are things around there. There are bad things out there, and I'm not just talking hurricanes and floods and stuff. Those are not necessarily evil. They just are. Evil is a choice. People make that choice. There is Satan is very real, and evil is a real thing. The big understanding on my part was this recognition of this over the last 15 years or so. I really came to understand this. There's a line in one of the Batman movies that some people just want to watch the world burn. Alfred the Butler tells that to Bruce Wayne. Some people just want to watch the world burn, and those are evil people. They prefer that choice, and that's the one they make. And you have to recognize that, and you have to recognize that it's a real thing, right? You can choose to pretend that it's not there, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. So if you pretend that it's not there, it's still there, right? So and God is there too, right? God is out there, whether you believe in him or not. He will still be there. So avoiding evil is essentially seeking good, which is to point to God, which is fear of the Lord. So those two things go hand in hand. If you're seeking God, if you're putting God at the center, that is fear of the Lord, and that is the way that you go about seeking good, which is the same as avoiding evil. So what that means to me at the start of my 7th decade here on Wednesday, January 8th, with my relentlessness and my discontent, it tells me that I need to make an effort to fear the Lord by centering there. Now, I try to do that, but now since I've read this, since I've been led down this little pathway from restlessness and discontent through Augustine, through the what did we call it? The Roman office of the readings, to the book of Job, to chapter 28, to this question of seeking wisdom and understanding. That's where I need to focus. That's how I need to see it. And this little bit will help keep me centered there, all right? And I will seek the good then and avoid the evil. It is interesting to me in the book of Job here, where he talks about where that fear of the Lord is wisdom and avoiding evil is understanding. In other places in the book of Job, Job is referred to as the one who does that, who does precisely that thing. So if you go back to chapter 1, chapter 1, verse 1, in the land of Uz, or maybe it's Uz, Uzi, in the land of Uz, I'll say Uz, in the land of Uz, there was a blameless and upright man named Job who feared God and avoided evil. Right? And then it says a little later on, then when God and Satan are talking about whether or not, Satan says, people only like you because you're nice to them. God says, well, have you, chapter 8, verse 8, the Lord said to the Satan, Have you noticed my servant Job? There was no one on earth like him, blameless and upright, fearing God and avoiding evil. It's right in there. Okay, so that it's in there twice, and then it's in there a third time in chapter 2, verse 3. The Lord says to Satan again, have you noticed my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him, blameless and upright, fearing God and avoiding evil. So it seems to me like here, fearing God and avoiding evil, those are good things that God recognizes in Job. And the reason that's good is we see in the poem on wisdom, chapter 28, that fear of the Lord is wisdom and avoiding evil is understanding. So Job has both wisdom and understanding. And those are things I seek. I've been seeking wisdom since I was 10 years old, and I knew that I wanted that, but I'm struggling to recognize whether I'm there or not. I like to think I have picked up some, but my heart, my restlessness, and my discontent are things that drive me to keep looking. So, like I said, on the eve of my start of my 7th decade, I will pray to let my heart rest in the Lord, as that is what I was made for. All right, that's all I got today, guys. Happy New Year to everyone. I appreciate you listening. Thank you for being part of the show. Remember, send us a note. We'll chat sometime about whatever you need us to chat about. In the meantime, seek the good, live virtuously, and flourish, and enjoy the adventure of life.
It's going to be a great day.